What are the top 5 meta decks this format? Big dog, with the new set Supreme Darkness coming around, there is going to be a huge shakeup in the meta. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I think are going to be the strongest decks and how some strategies got even stronger. Let's go ahead and jump on in. What's going on with ya, big dog? And it is an amazing day for Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope that your day phenomenal. But if it isn't, don't let what happened at the beginning of your day ruin the rest of your day. And as you guys should already know, it's always that time of the week. Update Monday! A particular time where we talk about something to not only benefit you as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, but more importantly, to benefit you as a person overall, because that's the most important thing. Today, big dog, I know we talked about this last week about New Year's resolution, but I actually want to double down on it. I know I told you that if you picked a New Year's resolution, you need to do it now than later, but I also want to talk about how it is important to manage your expectations. Rome wasn't built in a day, and the TheCaliEffect didn't become this strong overnight. It was hard work, discipline, and of course, my huge four-headed wife. You see, look at that forehead, dog. She got it. You go, queen. You go. Fa crib. Understand what a goal is that's too hard to achieve. Also understand that not everything in the world is attainable. Sometimes we have major setbacks for major comebacks, no diddy. Just like how in this video, I want to talk to you about how Supreme Darkness is going to make strategies run it back, and the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh because of it. Supreme Darkness has a little bit of something for everybody. The boomers, the zoomers, the doomers, and of course, the meta sheep. And I think this is a prime opportunity to talk about how the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh did get stronger from Supreme Darkness. You see, Crossover Breakers is what I like to call a side set. A deck build Yu-Gi-Oh set focused on giving you 3 strategies that get stronger over time. Strategies like Labyrinth, Centurion, and unfortunately Runic have all went through this phase, being a strategy that may not have been the strongest when it came out, but have gotten ridiculous over time. Crossover Breakers is kind of the opposite. Ryzeal is already thought of to be as the best deck in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, and it only gets stronger because of Supreme Darkness. You see, Konami has been in a bag recently. They've been focusing on underserved strategies in the game. 2 years ago, it was the year of the fire. Then it was Fiend monsters. Then it was water monsters. I think Konami is spinning the block on Xseed cards, and it doesn't stop when you have a card called Eclipse Twin coming out of this set. Now, what Eclipse Twin does is that it can be Xseed summoned using Xseed monsters. That means previous monsters that didn't have material, cards like Ryzeal Detonator and Abyss Dweller that become almost useless without it, become powerhouses when you summon this card using those. And if you thought that trading in your Xseed monsters would mean that you're lacking in firepower, you can detach one of the materials for this card to be able to attack twice. It got stronger. On top of that, Eclipse Twin, if it's in the graveyard, you get to target 2 other rank 4 monsters in your graveyard and special summon one of them and attach the other as material. Basically, you get to summon Detonator or Abyss Dweller one more time. It's a reason why cards like Abyss Dweller were banned in the OCG. It gets oppressive when you get to continuously summon Xseed monsters that you already use back to the side of the field and get some of their most devastating effects. It's also a big reason why players are thinking that the Ryzeal Mitsurugi version will probably be stronger than the previous version. I want you guys to think with your big brain, big dogs. Before we got the TCG exclusives in Mitsurugi, it was pretty much accepted that Malice would be the stronger of the deck going forward because it had better support on the way. I mean, don't get me wrong, Eclipse Twin is crazy good, but Malice has some ridiculous cards on its own. We'll talk about that in a second. The new Mitsurugi monsters give us cause for concern because the easiest way to search them is through King of Feral Imps, which just so happens to be an Xseed monster and just so happens to be something Ryzeal can play. There's also other variants that people have been using, like the Fiendsmith or the Bestial version of Ryzeal, and let's not forget about Sharks. When we get the card called 7th Tachyon, that version of that can be really good. What I'm saying is Ryzeal is here to stay once Supreme Darkness hits. It can be played in multiple ways, and you better believe your boy is trying to figure out how to make a Fire Fist Ryzeal deck. All I gotta do is take out the Fire Fist cards and it's a meta deck, right? right? But that brings me to the other elephant in the room, Malice. Malice has already been kicking players' butts like I've been kicking rheumatoid arthritis' ass. I think it's been about 3 years now. And it's a shame for people that hate Malice to know that it's getting more support, even more ridiculous support. Now, Malice is only getting one support card inside of Supreme Darkness. And fortunately for us, it's not direct support, so it doesn't share the same name or the same looks. If it did, TJ would probably be gooning all over the card. Template Skipper is a monster that special summons itself to the side of the field to where a Cyberse Link monster points to, and then you can banish one Cyberse monster from your hand or graveyard to change this card as a Link material with the same name as the banished monster. If you play Pokemon, essentially Template Skipper is Ditto. It can become the Malice monsters. TJ might actually still like that. Two of the biggest problems for Malice was having an additional name and having more searchable cyber support that can be served as extenders. Template Skipper helps in both of those departments and makes it a really strong Yu-Gi-Oh deck. And just in case you thought Fiendsmith was not getting indie support, you're wrong. Fiendsmith is actually getting 3 new cards, 2 of them are on name. Fiendsmith Rex Trimiday and Fiendsmith Kyrie are pretty interesting cards. Kyrie's first effect, preventing your Light Fiend monsters from being destroyed by battle and halving your damage, isn't that good. But being able to banish itself from the graveyard to fusion summon and allowing you to use monsters you control or in your spell and trap card zone is crazy. Rex Trimiday is unaffected by all card effects not Fiendsmith, and gives you another way to send Light Fiend monsters from your extra deck or your deck to the graveyard. Also, if itself is sent to the graveyard, it gets you a Fiendsmith card from your graveyard or your banishment to your hand. These 2 cards are crazy. It's like Kyrie Irvin meets Rex Raptor in Yu-Gi-Oh! That would actually be crazy. These cards, fortunately, if they want to be played, are going to be putting more stress on the engine variants of the deck, using Fiendsmith alongside of other engines, but will make a pure Fiendsmith deck a lot more viable, or maybe just a Fiend pile. Especially when you consider the new Link monster, we like to call her Sudamama. Her name is, I'm not saying the Japanese version of her name, Abao Aku, a bowel movement of Aku. I'm trying. This card being able to destroy 1 card on the field or special summon a light or dark monster from your graveyard, as well as being able to draw cards equal to the number of different monster types on your graveyard, makes Unchained the best deck, baby! Bro, you look, you thought I was coping when I told you Unchained Fiendsmith best deck. This is only proof in me. But in all seriousness, Sudamama or the Lightless Shadow is a really powerful generic Yu-Gi-Oh card. I think that it's going to be best served inside of Fiendsmith and Fiend variants, but can be powerful for any deck that summons Fiend monsters, and Fiend monsters are hard to find. Big dog, I be cooking up with the craziest ideas, and I apologize for not putting up more deck profiles on my Patreon. In case you guys didn't know, I've been editing the duel challenges myself, and that takes a lot of time. But starting here, I'm gonna be putting personal deck list on my Patreon as a special thank you for helping me pay my editors. But now that we got the big 3 out of the way, we can start talking about some of those other decks that are really good, and boy, there's actually a deck that players are really trying to bring to light. Crystron is interesting here. Never in a million years would I ever think I would be talking about Crystron and meta Yu-Gi-Oh deck, so let's break down exactly what the deck does. Crystron is a synchro-based Yu-Gi-Oh deck that wants to destroy its own cards to be able to gain effects. It's also a strategy that can synchro summon during your opponent's turn, similar to how Yang Zing's were, except actually good. What makes Crystrons so much more powerful in Supreme Darkness is that now they've been modernized. The new monster, Crystron Shuffled Hold, allows you to be able to target a Crystron monster you control, destroy it, and special summon it. And this can be brought out from the hand or graveyard. This card allows you to also Foolish Burial to additional Crystron monsters from your deck to your graveyard when it's summoned. Really powerful for this deck, because there are tons of Crystron monsters that are better off in the graveyard than on your field in hand. This card is the perfect starter, but it gets a little bit stronger. The spell card Crystron Inclusion allows you to be able to add a Crystron card from your deck to your hand. That's right, I said card. Not only can it get Shuffled Hold, it gives you access to any of the other cards you may need in your hand, just in case your opponent decides to stop a specific spot. I think one of the most powerful cards that the deck does have is Crystron Tristalos. Tristalos allows you to special summon a Crystron monster anytime your opponent activates a card or effect. And I don't know about you, big dog, if my opponent looks at me wrong, I'm considering that as activating a card or effect. I'm summoning a Crystron. Tristalos also bucks the trend of only being able to synchro summon on your opponent's turn, because when you do summon a monster to your side of the field, you get the synchro summon. And Tristalos isn't done just there. When you banish this card and destroy one of your synchro monsters, you get to summon 2 more Crystrons from your deck. The card doesn't mention except for itself. It doesn't mention except for itself. This is exactly what we needed for synchro Yu-Gi-Oh decks, an endless stream of synchro summoning. Surely the last time that this existed, it wasn't a problem for the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. No sir. And lastly, big dog, we always gotta do it. We gotta put 10 toes down and get to my copium take. This is probably everybody's favorite part of the video, because I talk about a Yu-Gi-Oh strategy that sometimes has no business being there. Also, sometimes the strategy go crazy. So I mean, hey. If I had to say that there was a particular Yu-Gi-Oh strategy, it wasn't a deck that got stronger because of Supreme Darkness, at least not directly. I mean, we already know that the Molcharmy cards are pretty crazy. There's Molcharmy Flawless that draws every time a monster is special summoned from the deck or extra deck. Then Perulio when a monster is summoned from the hand. Then there's the new Nihilus, which draws every time your opponent summons from graveyard or banishment. It's starting to become really crazy to even consider playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Anytime you summon, your opponent might be digging their hands into your pockets trying to draw cards. But I think Memento is that deck. It's a strategy that can successfully dodge all 3 of those, but it's also really good against hand traps. Yu-Gi-Oh players are often a little bit slow to the party, but Goblin Biker Grand Entrance was a crazy good card for them. It gets them to be able to tribute cards, whether it's theirs to dodge infinite impermanence or effect veiler, or your opponent's when you take them with a talent. The deck is outright insane against hand traps and still has one of the most craziest cards in the game. The Yu-Gi-Oh version of Ainz, or what we like to call Bone Daddy Combined Creation, has 5,000 freaking attack. I don't care what you say about Yu-Gi-Oh! If I summon a monster bigger than yours, it wasn't cold that night. Combined Creation can often put your opponent in do or die situations when combined with the Memento trap cards, but the meme team doesn't stop there. It's a strategy that can link summon into some of the most awkward cards. It can fusion summon into Guardian Chimera, and you know how I feel about Guardian Chimera, all while being able to play very well against some of the most powerful cards in the game. That would easily have to be in my top 5. But that's what I think are the best 5 Yu-Gi-Oh decks right now, big dog, and I think for 4 out of 5, it's gonna be really hard to argue coming into Supreme Darkness. But overall, I can't wait to see what you have to say about this particular video and what decks you think are great and why. As always, big dog, I hope you're having an amazing day, and if you want to see more of TheCaliEffect, just go ahead and click on that video so we can stay strong.